Muhammad salawat. Hazrat Hur bin Yazid Atami al-Rui was a career officer in the Kufa army. When Hussein bin Namr, the commander at Al-Qaisa, learned that Imam Hussein and his courage were getting very close to Kufa, when he dispatched her with a detachment of 1,000 men to intercept Imam. Her believed that Imam was being prevented from entering Kufa because his presence might jeopardize the stability of the city. As a professional soldier, he did not concern himself with that he considered to be political issues. His duty he felt to execute the order of his superiors. However, lurking somewhere in that distraught military heart was Islamic coincidence. Hazrat Hur and his soldiers met Imam Hussein and his companions a few miles outside Kufa. It was midday when the two parties met. Hur and his people had been traveling since morning and were very thirsty. He requested Imam Hussein for water for his army. Imam Hussein asked Hazrat Abbas, Hazrat Ali, Akbar, Hazrat Qasim, and the others to give her and his men water and also give water to their horses. This may be a conjoint scene. Water bottles been brought out of the saddlebags and the youths pouring waters for Yazid's army to quench their thirst. Zuhr prayers were led by Imam Hussein, and Hur and his soldiers joined in. After the prayers, Hur told Imam Hussein that his orders were to stop Imam Hussein from going into Kufa unless he agreed to give swear allegiance to Yazid. Imam Hussein said that he would never give bayt to Yazid. Yazid was an unjust ruler who wanted to destroy Islam. In any case, he was going to Kufa because he'd been invited by the people there. Imam produced 2 sacks of letters and petitions from the people of Kufa begging them to go there. Hur said that his orders were not to let Imam go to Kufa. There was nothing he can do to carry out his orders. Imam Hussein could have fought Hur and his soldiers and forced his way into Kufa, but he did not wish to start any battle. He told Hur that it would take another route and go away from Kufa. Hur said that his orders were to follow Imam Hussein, and so followed by Hur and his 1,000 soldiers. Imam Hussein and his companion rode into the direction away from Kufa. On the 2nd Muharram, they reached Karbala. Imam Hussein bought land there and put up his tents. Hur and his men pitched their camps some distance away. The following day, Umar bin Saad came to Karbala with 4,000 soldiers. Umar Saad was the commander of Yazid's army. He had several meetings with Imam Hussein and was so impressed by the Imam that he began to join the Imam for prayers. When Ibn Zayd heard this, he was furious. He sent Shimr with 10,000 men and wrote a letter to Umar bin Sayyid ordering him to to get bait from Imam Hussein or kill him. Umar bin Said immediately changed his attitude towards Imam Hussein. Following his instructions, he imposed restrictions on Imam Hussein and his followers, from getting water, frat, and from the 7th Muharram, no one from Imam Hussein's camp was allowed near the river. On the night of Ashura, Hur was very restless. He could hear the children in Imam Hussein's camp cry because of thirst. He began to think, what have I done? What did I put in the son of Fatima in this position? Will Allah ever forgive me? He could not sleep the whole night. Within him there was a struggle between his duty as a soldier and his Islamic coincidence. Before dawn, he made up his mind. His son, and his slave rode over to Imam Hussein's camp. Hur threw himself at Imam Hussein's feet, pleading for forgiveness. Imam Hussein took her in his arms and said, Hur, I forgive you. I assure that my grandfather, the Holy Prophet, also forgives you. Hur then asked Imam Hussein for permission to go fight the enemies of Islam. Imam Hussein said, Hur, you're my guest. How can I let you die for me? Hur insisted. Hur went to the battlefield, and after a violent fight, he fell and was killed. His son and the slave were also killed. Hur's example moved nearly 30 other soldiers to defect Imam Hussein. There were only reward to have a certain death, but Allah's pressure lay. The story of Hur is a struggle between right and wrong within human mind and victory of Islamic coincidence. When he got to the body of Hur, Imam prayed to Allah, O Allah, I commend you, this brave man who have given his life for Islam. Salawat.
MashaAllah, brother. And now I'd like to request Maulana Safi, the member, to grace us with his presence and continue his lecture series. Salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وصلى اللهم على آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين. قال الله الحكيم في القرآن الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الدين عند الله الإسلام. صلاة على محمد وآل محمد. When we talk about the religion of Islam, it is important for us to understand that the religion of Islam is a holistic package. This religion is something that incorporates every aspect of our lives and every aspect of our beings and every aspect of every single thing that we have been instructed about. This religion is such that it is a religion of peace, it is a religion of justice, it is a religion of value, it is a religion of humanity, it is a religion that teaches us the sublime aspect of submission to God in every aspect of our being, every aspect of our essence, and every aspect of our lives. Why is it that when we talk about the religion of Islam then, that some people, they have a very misconstrued understanding of what Islam is. Why is it that when we talk about as Muslims, as followers of the religion of Islam, they would say that the Abrahamic faiths are divided into 3 different categories. Judaism, they would say, is a religion of law. Christianity is a religion of love. And Islam is a religion of justice. But then at the same time, when we talk about the idea of law, love, and justice, we must understand that there is law and love and justice in Judaism. There is love and law and justice in Christianity. At the same time, there is law and love and justice in Islam as well. Why is it then that when we talk about the religion of Islam, there is somehow a misconstrued understanding of Islam which promotes Islam as a religion of violence and fighting? There is an understanding in the modern world today that Islam is a religion of war and fighting, that Islam teaches violence. But the reality is, Islam is a religion of justice. It is a religion of fairness. It is a religion of humanity. It is a religion of value. It is so important for us to understand this, because we as Muslims living in 2019 United States of America need to portray Islam as that what it really is. If we come out and say Islam is a religion of justice, then we need to prove the point that Islam is a religion of justice. That Islam is a religion of justice means for us to show that during the lifetime of the Prophet and the Imams, how they implemented Islamic justice. How they showed the world that Islam is a religion of peace and love. How they showed that Islam is a non-violent religion. Because all we hear about today in Islam, is that Islam is a religion of violence. But in reality, look at the religion of Islam and tell me whether or not it is a religion of justice. Look at Islam and tell me whether or not it is a religion of peace. Look at Islam. See Islam for what it really is. Because Islam taught humanity when there was no humanity. Islam taught love and justice when there was no love and justice in the world. In the pre-Islamic era, which Muslims called Ayam Jahiliyyah, daughters were buried alive when they were born. There was a massive institution of slavery. There was fire worship in Persia. There was idol worship in the Arabian Peninsula and throughout the rest of the world. How is it that a religion then comes and it transforms the rest of the society in such a way that Salman becomes Minna Ahl al-Bayt, Bilal is Bilal, Miqdad is Miqdad, Abu Dhar becomes Abu Dhar, Ammar becomes Ammar, Ammar Yasir becomes Ammar Yasir. How? Because Islam taught justice, that's how. Islam broke the shackles of tyranny and oppression, and it established a system whereby a woman was given the highest respect in Islam. The woman is given the most highest respect in Islam. What does that mean though? When I say a woman is given the highest degree of respect in the Islamic faith, that means you can look at all other religions, all other societies, and you can say Islam gives the woman the most respect in every single way and aspect of it. Islam gave women status when they did not have it. Islam gave women an identity when they did not have it. Islam made sure that if you look at Surah An-Nisa, they have a very vivid description of what used to happen to women and orphans during the time of Jahiliyyah. In Ayam Jahiliyyah, a woman, she had no status. She had no power. When her heir, when her wali would die, the chieftain of the tribes, or sometimes they would say the son, her oldest son would marry all the women of their fathers, that were in their fathers' nikah, or their father's matrimonial ceremony. They would marry all the women, including their own mothers. They would do all of those things. And when it comes to orphans, the Surah An-Nisa says that they would swallow, the chieftain of those tribes would swallow what the Quran says, balls of fire into their stomachs. What does that mean? That means they would devour the wealth of the orphans. Islam gave women status by saying, first of all, no, you're not allowed to marry as many women as you want. 1 to 4, that's it. Number 2, when it comes to orphans, Islam gave the orphans rights. Islam gave the orphans huquq. Islam gave the orphans an understanding of what it means to be a human being. Islam did all of that. Islam actually did that. Now, when we say "Inna ad-Dina 'inda Allahi al-Islam," there is a question that I would like to ask. Let me backtrack a little bit. I said Islam gave women status. Islam gave orphans status. What about the slaves? There is a debate or discussion even in Islamic circles that says that, in the Western world was the one that got rid of slavery. And that Islam kept slavery. There is a difference in that. Because while the Western world got rid of the name slavery and slaves, slavery still exists in the Western world. Whole nations have become slaves. Islam did not get rid of the name, but it got rid of the institution. Prophet Muhammad, during his life, he was known to have bought slaves and set them free. If this is not getting rid of the institution of slavery, then what is? Islam gave this slave rights. Slavery meant that a slave had no rights. Islam kept the name, but instead of making him a slave, he made them a servant. Please recite the salawat. Another loud salawat, please. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Islam was a religion based that gave people an identity and a name and an image of justice. Now, what is Islamic justice, first of all? We need to go back to the root of justice and understand what justice is. Everything in Islam goes back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every single thing in Islam goes back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When I say Islam established justice in the world, that is because God is just. And He wants justice in this world. When I say Islam came and established humanity and peace and justice, it is because God wanted us, because of His justice, to establish these values in human society. So, when I say Islam established justice, it is because the God of Islam is a God of justice. What do I mean by God of justice? In the Muslim world, there has been a debate as to what it means to say God is just. There's been a big debate in the Muslim world to see what it means, to understand what it means by when we say God is just. What do I mean by when I say God is just? On the one hand, you have certain individuals that say God is just because justice is a part of him, and even if he wanted to, na'udhu billah, throw Abu Abdullah al-Hussein in hell and Yazid in heaven, he could do that. This group became known as the Asharites. And they openly propagated the idea that because God does whatever he wants to and it is justice, he can literally do whatever he wants, and that's fine, that is justice. In response to that, actually this group was supported by the ruling authorities so that they could do whatever they wanted. If God can throw Yazid, Imam Hussein into hell and Yazid into heaven, then all practical implications of any version of justice are absolutely absurd. Because God does whatever God wants, and if he wants to make a promise right now that Imam Hussein is going to heaven and Yazid is going to hell, tomorrow he changes his mind, does the other way around, it's completely fine according to them. This gave legitimacy to the injustices of the Banu Umayyah. And the Banu Umayyah used this as a strategy to propagate their ideas of Islam. The result is exactly what I said. In response to this, there was another group that emerged. And they said, no, justice exists outside of God, and God will act according to this conception of justice. This group became known as the Mu'tazilites. This group propagated the idea that justice exists as a reality outside of God. But then now the question is, if God did not create justice, who did? And if God did not create justice, then who did? And if this God is dependent on the justice conception of something else, this God is no longer God. The one who created the idea of justice becomes God. Now, when I say justice, the school of Ahlul Bayt proposed a different idea. And they said a path between the two paths. Neither complete predestination or complete free will. The Mu'tazilites, they proposed the idea that human beings had complete free will in their actions. This school of Ahlul Bayt said neither this nor that, but a path between the two paths. What does that mean? A path between the two paths. A path between the two paths, meaning not 100% predestination and not 100% free will. There are certain things in my life that I do not have free will over. For example, my family. I don't get to decide who my parents are, who my siblings are. I don't even get to decide who my aunts and uncles are. That part is predestination. But whether or not I get to do good or bad in this world, that is free will. Recite a salawat, please. A louder salawat for the love of Muhammad and all Muhammad. When it comes to this understanding, we must understand, therefore, that there are certain aspects of our lives that we have absolutely no say over. But then there are other aspects of our lives that we do have a say over. And it is with regards to the aspects that we do have a say over, they say that Allah created an infinite number of possibilities, and we choose which path we want to follow. We choose the path that we want to follow. We choose the path that we want to be implemented in our lives. We choose all of that. When it comes to be that Islam propagated by the Ahlul Bayt supported this idea of a path between the two paths, that is the ultimate understanding of justice from the Islamic conception. How? It makes sense. Really, it makes sense. That in the things that I do have choices over, I get to choose whichever option I want. But in other aspects of my life, which I don't have any say over, it's chosen by God directly. Very simple, right? Very easy to understand. Question. Now, what happens with the idea of justice when it comes to God himself? I already said a path between the two paths as the ultimate understanding of justice. What happens then? Simple. It's really simple. God promotes justice as the ultimate virtue. It is that everything needs to follow. It is that quality that every being needs to live under. How and why and what am I talking about? When I say justice, I mean justice. When I say peace, I mean peace. It really is that simple. Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullahi alayh was once asked, what is more important? What is better? Justice or generosity? And he says justice. The question is asked, how or why? He says, generosity takes a thing out of its place and puts it in a different place, while justice takes that thing and puts it in the place that it belongs. Everything that I need to do has to be an embodiment of this idea of justice. Put everything where it belongs. Everything. And this idea is very important for us even in Islamic spirituality. Because justice means putting love and attention and care and giving and all the virtuous characteristics of God in our lives where they belong. If I say my God is a God of love and justice, justice getting the primacy, that means I have to act with love in accordance in such a way that my God wants me to. Otherwise, it's a no-gamer. It doesn't make sense. If I say my God is a God of morality, and justice being the ultimate moral virtue, then I need to be able to prove that point. If I say my God is a God of love and humanity, then I need to be able to prove that point. And that all happens when I put justice in its proper place. Say salawat, please. It's only when I put justice in its proper place that I can have a full and true understanding of the religion of Islam. That's the only way. It's the only way to have a proper understanding of humanity. Because when I say Islam propagates human value, that Islam propagates this idea of justice and love and respect and peace and values, then I need to be able to prove that point. Islam is a religion of moral value. Islam is a religion of family values. Islam is a religion of humanity. Islam is a religion that propagates all of the virtues that exist in the divine to be brought at the human level so that the human being can participate in what we call worship, proper worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that the human being can be part of what is true submission to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that when the time comes, Assalamu alaikum. When the time comes, we can be the full implementation of the justice of Ahlul Bayt in every aspect of our lives. We can show the path of humanity to the rest of society and the world. We can show that Islam truly is a religion of peace. Islam is a religion that propagated peace and value before any other religion ever did. Because if I treat Islam as the original religion, it was number one. It was the founding religion. It was the religion of Adam. It is the religion of Nur Muhammadi. It is that religion. And when I say religion, therefore, I must understand that it incorporates all of these aspects. If I do not, then my understanding of humanity is misconstrued. My understanding of justice is misconstrued. My understanding of everything is out of balance. When I say Islam established justice, I need to be able to prove that justice was established in Islam. I need to be that beacon of justice so that everybody else can follow. I need to be that beacon of humanity so that everybody else can follow. I need to be that beacon of human value so that everybody else can follow. I need to be that beacon of peace so that when the time comes, everybody else will follow my understanding of Islamic justice, my understanding of value, my understanding of peace, my understanding of humanity. After all, that is all what we're here to talk about, right? That is, everything in Islam rests on the conception of justice. Everything in Islam rests on the conception of human value. Everything in Islam rests on a conception of peace and humanity. If there is no humanity, if there is no justice, there is no human value, there is no peace, there is no moral value, what do we have? We have nothing. We have absolutely nothing if we do not understand that Islam established human values in society. We have absolutely nothing if we don't understand Islam established peace and justice and fairness in society. We have absolutely nothing unless we understand that Islam gave humanity a voice when it didn't have anything. We have to understand and propagate this view of Islam, because this is the only view of Islam that can ever be successful in the world. That is the only view of Islam that can ever be successful in the world. We need to understand, therefore, that when we talk about Ahlul Bayt specifically Ahlul Bayt, that they were the embodiment of all of these characteristics in their lives. I've mentioned the 1979 revolution quite a few times in my lectures. The 1979 revolution led by Imam Khomeini alayhi salam was a revolution of family values. It was a revolution of morality. When we say revolution of morality, we must understand there have been different types of revolutions that existed in the world. Revolutions based on economic, socialism, capitalism. Both revolutions based on economics and communism. There's a revolution of women's rights called feminism. There is a revolution on all of these subjects. Islamic revolution is a revolution of morals. It's a revolution that brings morality into the lives of everybody, into their full implementation. And the full implementation is only possible when we follow the principles of what Ahlul Bayt have taught us. Please recite another salawat. When we talk about Ahlul Bayt, therefore, we must understand their stance is a stance of love and respect and humanity. Their stance is a stance of value. Their stance is a stance of humanity. Their stance is a stance of justice. Their stance is a stance of peace and values. Without understanding the values of Ahlul Bayt, we will never be able to properly promulgate and support and spread Islam throughout the world. Without understanding Ahlul Bayt as that moral authority, we will never be able to support and truly understand what their version of morality is. Without understanding their version of morality, we cannot understand what Islam is. It's not possible. It's not possible. Ahlul Bayt are the moral backing of Islam. They are Islam. If Islam is justice, Islam is peace, Islam is humanity, Islam is value, it is because Ahlul Bayt embodied those principles of Islam in their own lives that we can call it that. It is because Ahlul Bayt supported and promulgated the ideas of justice in society. That is why we are here today. When we talk about Islam, Islam without Ahlul Bayt is not Islam. If I say Islam is a religion of guidance, and I've said this before in previous lectures as well, the Quran is saying whosoever wants to get whatever they want out of the Quran, they'll get it. Anybody wants peace from the Quran, they'll get peace. They want violence, they'll get violence. If they want humanity, they'll get humanity. The faqih will get fiqh, the arif will get irfan, the sociologist will get sociology, and everything else in between. The political scientist will get political science, and everything else. So then what is it left? If everybody is getting their own interpretation of the Quran, and the Quran is saying that because the Quran is the Quran, all interpretations are intrinsically valid, by the very fact that there are interpretations, there are opinions, what does that leave? It leaves us to understand that the Ahlul Bayt are the Islam. They are the Islam. They are the reason why the religion of Islam gets called the religion of guidance. Because if the Quran is saying everybody can get whatever they want out of it, for me to say that Islam is a religion of guidance, I need to be able to point to those individuals through whom the Quran is properly understood. And that is none other than Ahlul Bayt salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Recite a salat, please. That is the most important lesson we can give to society. It is a lesson of human value. It is a lesson of humanity. It is a lesson that says Ahlul Bayt were the ones who shed the light of Islam throughout the world. Without Ahlul Bayt, Islam is nothing. It's an empty carcass. It is a rotting body. It does not exist. Islam was dead in 61 AH. Abu Abdullah resurrected Islam in 61 AH. Islam, by the time of 61 AH, Islam did not exist. Islam did not exist. One of my favorite scholars who used to actually live in New York, Sheikh Sayyid Hijazi, he used to say that in Islam we need justice and we need unity, both of them together. In the time of Imam Ali, there was justice when he became Khalifa, but there was no unity. And look at how many battles Imam Ali had to fight to preserve the Islamic world. In the time of Abu Abdullah, there was unity, but there was no justice. In the time of Imam Ali, everybody accepted the justice of Imam Ali in his Khilafah, that he was the most capable one. But the Muslims were fighting with one another. In the time of Abu Abdullah, everybody accepted that the Yazid was a tyrant, but they were all unified with him. And Abu Abdullah took that Islam as a dead body and he revived it, he resuscitated it, he gave it life again. Him and his noble companions. It was Abu Abdullah that revived the nature of Islam in the world. It was Abu Abdullah that revived the justice of Islam, the peace of Islam, the unity of Islam, the moral values of Islam. The Islam that says you need to be united but under a just ruler. Because most of the time when they said, Ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul wa ulil amri minkum, they understood it as saying as the one who was invested in political authority amongst you, regardless of what they did. One of my teachers at Hartford Seminary, he was from the Ahl Sunnah. He is from the Ahl Sunnah. We were talking about the debacle in Syria, and he said it's really sad what's happening in Syria. Because according to the Ahl Sunnah, they would say it is better to live a lifetime under a tyrant than to live even a second or an hour under political tumultuous rule. That was the idea that was promoted to make sure Yazid stays in power. Abu Abdullah said, no, that's not going to happen under Abu Abdullah. Why? Let me ask you in a different way. Abu Abdullah fought. Imam al-Hasan had a peace treaty. What is the difference? Or is there a difference? Is there a difference between the peace treaty of Imam Hassan and the fighting of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein? If you accept the idea of what Qa'id al-Sayyid Ali Khamenei said in his book 250-year-old Man, then you cannot say they were any different. Why? Muawiyah la'natullahi alayh put forth a paper under which it was written, write whatever you want, I will accept whatever conditions. He did not accept those conditions, but he also did not force Imam al-Hasan into bay'ah. Imam al-Hasan was not forced into bay'ah. The message that Abu Abdullah al-Hussein got was either you do bay'ah or I will have your head. And Abu Abdullah said, it is better for me to lose my head than to do bay'ah of a man like Yazid. Recite a salat again. When we talk therefore about Karbala, we need to understand that it was that revolution that brought Islam back into the fore. It was the revolution of Abu Abdullah that instilled values in the Muslim community again, of justice and peace and humanity. Why am I saying this? If you actually read history, having captives being paraded throughout the land is the stuff of the Babylonians and the Romans and all of those. Decapitating heads, putting them on lances, was done before. And Islam got rid of all of that. Yazid brought all of that back. Yazid brought each and every one of those crimes the previous governors and kingdoms and empires had done back. Not only did he brought them back, he instituted them on the family of Prophet Muhammad. There is a rawaya that says that in the palace of Yazid, I believe it was some member of the Eastern European hierarchy, Byzantine hierarchy, they draw their lineage back to Saint Peter, who was a disciple of Jesus. He saw the condition of Ahlul Bayt and he asked, who are they? He found out these are the descendants of the Prophet of Islam. He goes up to Yazid and he says to him, Yazid, I am multiple generations removed from Peter, the disciple of Jesus. But nobody amongst the Christian nation can ever do anything like this to my family. How is it possible that something happened to the grandson of Rasulullah? How is that possible? The path that Ahlul Bayt took from Karbala to Kufa and Kufa to Sham, it was the most indirect path. They went from Karbala, Kufa, all the way to the northern parts of the Muslim world, to Damascus. They encountered not only cities with Muslims, but cities with Christians and Jews. And a lot of times the Jews and the Christians were more hospitable to Ahlul Bayt than the Muslims were. A lot of times they were more willing to give Ahlul Bayt their rights. In one book I've actually read, when Ahlul Bayt were about to enter the city of Mosul, which is the Kurdish capital right now, they said, we will not let Ahlul Bayt enter. These are the descendants of your Prophet. This is a Christian city. And they said, if they're going to enter, we're going to give them their hijab. They said no. The ruling authority, Yazid's men, said no. But we need to understand that the message of Abu Abdullah is a lesson of also forgiveness. All throughout the battle of Karbala, Abu Abdullah al-Hussein keeps on admonishing people, guiding people, giving them nasiha, trying to make sure that they get they're back on the right path. The whole Ashura is filled with sermons of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein salawatullahi alayhi. Isn't Hamza Sayyid al-Shuhada my uncle, he asks them. Isn't Ja'far al-Tayyar my uncle? Didn't the Prophet say about me and my brother that Hadani Sayyid al-Sabab Ahl al-Jannah? These are the youths of the paradise. Leaders of the youths of the paradise. He keeps on asking, he keeps on telling them, even after Karbala, it is said that the killers of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, they approached Imam al-Sajjad, and Lady Zainab was there. They asked him, is it possible for us to be forgiven? He says, yes. They say, how? He says, perform 2 rak'ah salat khufayla, the mustahab salat that you recite between Maghrib and Isha, and you'll be forgiven. Lady Zainab is like, excuse me? You're just telling them that your father, my brother's killers can be forgiven? He said, yes, but I know they will never recite Salat al-Khufayla. After what they have done, they will never recite it. They will never recite it. So tonight, I want to talk about somebody who was forgiven by Abu Abdullah al-Hussein on the day of Ashura. The one who I'm about to talk about is none other than Al-Hurr ibn Yazid al-Riyahi. Put yourself back into 61 after Hijrah. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, when he wants to leave, when he leaves Yawm al-Arafat, on the day of Arafat, in the plains of Arafat, he tells them that he is going to Kufa. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein is intercepted by Hur and an army of 1,000 men saying, we will not let you enter Kufa. Everything that happens to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein after that point, it is because of Hur. They are forced into an empty plains because of Hur. They set up their tents next to the riverbank. On the 5th of Muharram, the tents are removed. Why? Because of Hur. On the 7th of Muharram, all water is blocked from Ahlul Bayt. Why? Because of Hur. The children are thirsty. Why? Because of Hur. The women are thirsty. Why? Because of Hur. The men are thirsty. Why? Because of Hur. Let me backtrack a little bit. When Abu Abdullah al-Husayn's army encounters Hur's forces for the first time, he sees that Hur's forces are thirsty, and they ask for water. Abu Abdullah al-Husayn empties all of his water containers and everything, and he gives it to Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi. Hur, despite everything that he did, he had an extreme love of Fatima az-Zahra in his heart. So much so that when Abu Abdullah al-Husayn encountered Hur, he said something about him. And Abu Abdullah al-Husayn, instead of responding, Hur said, if your mother was somebody other than Fatima az-Zahra, I would have said something. But your mother is Fatima. I can't say anything about Fatima az-Zahra and her children. On the night of Shab-e Ashur, on the one side you have Abu Abdullah al-Husayn and his companions performing worship. On the other side you have Yazid's men, and you have Hur, and it is said they could hear the cries of Al-Atash, Al-Atash from the camps of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn. Al-Hur, it is said that he was the most valiant general of Yazid's forces. Yet when Yazid's men encountered Hur on the night of Shab-e Ashur, he was trembling. They asked him, Hur, why are you trembling? He says, I can see heaven and hell in front of me. I have to make a choice. He makes the choice of paradise. He goes to Abu Abdullah al-Husayn's tents and he asks for forgiveness. Abu Abdullah al-Husayn, he says, Hur, your mother named you for the right reasons. Hur means the free man. He says, Hur, you are free in this world and in the hereafter. Hur says, Mawla, my master Hussein, I want to be the first one to go into the battlefield and fight. I want to sacrifice my son first. Abu Abdullah al-Husayn, Abu Abdullah al-Husayn gives Hur and his son permission. Hur's son fights valiantly and bravely. It is said that when Hur's son actually calls out for help, Hur goes to the body of his son, but he finds out that Abu Abdullah al-Husayn, salamullahi alayh, he is already there. He says, Master, why are you here at the body of my son? Abu Abdullah al-Husayn responds by saying, Hur, no old father should pick up the body of his deceased son. Hur, you are seeing this right now. Just moments from now, Abu Abdullah al-Husayn will be alone. Just moments from now, there will be no companion to help Abu Abdullah al-Husayn. Ali al-Akbar will have an arrow in his chest. He will call out to his father, Abu Abdullah, where will you be when Abu Abdullah al-Husayn sees the body of his son with an arrow in his chest? It is said that when Abu Abdullah al-Husayn finally approached, I conclude with this point. when he approached Ali al-Akbar's body, he was about to take out the head of the arrow from his chest. It is said that he turned to face Najaf and he says, Father, you were the one who lifted the gates of Khaybar. Come see me lifting the head of the spear from the chest of my son. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Let us pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 10 times. Ya Allah, 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 Ya Allah. Ya Allah, we pray that we get the tawfiq of the majalis of Abu Abdullah and Hussein, that we get learn the lessons of Karbala, that we get to implement the lessons of Karbala in every aspect of our lives. Ya Allah, Ya Allah, there is a Hussein in Ghaiba who we want to serve. Ya Allah, we pray that we get to be the servants of Imam al-Zaman. Ya Allah, we pray that our family and our children and all mu'mineen get to see the day that the flag of Imam al-Zaman is raised throughout the world. Sadaqallahu al-Aliyul Azim. Sayalamu alladhina zalamu ayyamun qadabi yanqalibun. Fatiha for all marhumin.